All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. I'm your host, Scott Forrester, and today we have as our guest, Shara Ogin. And Shara is an intuitive coach. She has a degree. Oh, now you came in very, very clearly.
Yeah.
She has a degree as a reverend. She is a Feldenkrais practitioner, a life coach, an ergonomist, which is hard to say, and has had a career in occupational therapy. So with that background, we're going to expect a very interesting interview, and I know that's exactly what we're going to get. So Shara has a new book, and the book is titled Unlocking the Body's Wisdom, Accessing Your Healing Power from Within. So, Shara, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just dive in here.
Okay.
With all your credentials, which speak of a unique individual, which we all are, can you tell me how you got, give us a little bit background who you are and how you got started in such a wonderful healing journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my whole background was in the medical field. I graduated at age 21 as an occupational therapist, and I became an ergonomist and a Feldenkrais practitioner. And it was great. All three of those worked really well together. So I was able to incorporate all the skills. And I actually never had any intention to leave that because I was so impressed with the Feldenkrais work, loved the results I was seeing. I loved helping people to heal. Like that really was what I was put on this planet to be doing. However, I started to explore interpersonal transformational work when I was starting my 20s because I wanted to learn how to be happy. And I had a lot of like oddities, like I didn't really know how to connect very well with people and a lot of self-limiting beliefs. Just so like every day, I would say I was more on what was wrong with me than what was right with me. And so hence it blocked me from becoming the person I wanted to be in a lot of ways. And so then when I got into my late 30s, I started to just explore spirituality a little bit, but I was still never really like, I didn't really understand psychic world or anything like that. But then I just did the deep dive when I was 40, which was 9 years ago. I just was like, I want to be happy. I just was like, I want to be happy. And I entered into a psychic training, clairvoyant training that was 4 years long. And I did it solely for my own purpose to clear some of the things that I knew were getting in the way, like some limiting beliefs, and to just live a higher life of consciousness. And what happened is towards the end, towards my third year, everything in my life changed. I started to manifest everything I wanted at the same time as I was letting go of all those limiting beliefs, like all those stuck things that were standing in the way. And so then I started to incorporate it into, the other things I was doing, like working with people, not working with people in clinic. I never overlapped the two, but working with people like one-on-one. It was easy.
You didn't overlap what?
Oh, well, so by clinic, I mean, as an occupational therapist, I'm very, I always wore different hats, let's say.
So you didn't bring the other skills strictly into that setting in the clinic?
I brought the ergonomics and the Feldenkrais and my OT together. Yes. But then this coaching, and I'd done several years of coaching training. So the coaching and the psychic all of a sudden was a different hat. And then all of a sudden I brought this hat more into that one, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Well, everything has to be integrated eventually. So
yeah.
You've already raised some very interesting things there. By way of introduction, this show is called the Aware Athlete Show. And I've always intended that to be more about life fitness than physical fitness. So you've already brought up self-limiting beliefs, negative thoughts, attitudes, and so on. And then now you're bringing up happiness and joy. And those are critical, I think. And in the book I wrote, the Aware Athlete book, those are critical for anyone finding real meaning and success in life, including if you want to just speak of the traditional meaning of athlete rather than my deeper intended meaning. But so I was very impressed with the title of your book, Unlocking the Body's Wisdom. And then I think every word in your title has power, accessing your healing power from within. And so before we go a lot farther to dive into that, you already mentioned Feldenkrais. And in your book, you give a little page of introduction to what the Feldenkrais method is, and that it's sought in two modalities. One is a group teaching, and one is more hands-on. And you give a little mention of who Feldenkrais is, but I don't think directly in the book you didn't comment on how Feldenkrais has impacted your life, why you were interested in it in the first place, and how it has impacted your own healing journey and your journey of providing a learning environment for those also others that you come in contact that are on the same healing journey.
Well, first of all, when I was writing my book, I was playing with the idea, and I've been writing this book for 4 years, by the way, of how to incorporate the Feldenkrais into my work, because I think a lot of healing for a lot of diagnoses needs. Feldenkrais helps people to unravel their holding patterns, and holding and contraction and the way we hold our physiological body. It can be unraveled through this method. There's other methods as well. Just maybe this is the one I know that I like the best, and I'm biased too because I'm already a practitioner.
Yeah.
So just backing up, all emotions that we have, fear, shame, anger, that contracts our body somewhere. And over time, we create imprints with these emotions and thoughts. These imprints started in childhood and they continue through life. And here we are as adults, and we're already like contracted in, somewhere like here, or back of our neck because of our life experiences. So we need to find some way to unravel these patterns, and we can unravel them either through the mind, which is, psychology, which I incorporate a lot of, belief change work, all of that, or through the physiology, the somatic body. And so in my book, I talk about incorporating a combination of both for the perfect package, and one directly impacts the other. The body and the mind are one and the same, on a cellular level especially, okay? So with incorporating the Feldenkrais into my book, I thought about, in my first book, I wrote A Quick Guide to Easing Pain in the Workplace and Beyond. I did incorporate a whole series, and I'm happy to actually share a copy of that with you, a whole series of lessons on like ATM, awareness through movement lessons in that. However, I'm one of those people, like a lot of people, I have a hard time reading ATMs. I like to listen to ATMs. Yeah. So I have a whole series of audio, like DVDs. I have just a whole library of DVDs and stuff I made, but I just decided that I didn't want to write another book where I'd be reading ATMs, but instead I made references to I have a whole free YouTube library of videos, and then some you can purchase on Amazon. Anyways, let me make sure I'm answering your question. It was something about, how Feldenkrais impacted me.
Yes. Because, you took that in your 20s. You did the training in your 20s. And I find, and others have found, that it takes, that's a 4 years training if everyone doesn't know that.
Yeah.
That's quite a commitment. But I find that the work actually has a deeper impact on you as the years go by after the training.
Absolutely. In fact, when I finished the training, I don't even think I understood what it was, really.
That's exactly where most people are, I think.
Well, I was able to incorporate it right away because I was working as an occupational therapist, and it took me maybe 5 years before I got comfortable touching a person. Now I can literally just look at a person and be like, I need to put my hand right here on your sternum and to kind of loosen these ribs here so that you could have more movement. I literally could just see someone and know I want to touch their body in some way. Anyways, but for me personally, I was without pain or any, thing going on. But when I look back about who that person I was back then, so disconnected and so lost that I was on my way to getting an injury. I'm sure of it, someone who had that much shame, that much feeling of being a bad and wrong person, most likely their humerus is going to fold in and their chin is going to come down and they're going to contract their sternum inward and their shoulder blades are going to flare off their back. I was heading in that pattern. But thanks to the Feldenkrais method, I now would say I have a pretty straight posture overall. And now I credit it more to the mind and the energy healing things I'm doing that keeps my mind alert, open, and my peripheral vision open, So it's the whole combination of things now.
Yeah. So now as a 20-year-old though, what was your first impression and how did you get attracted to Feldenkrais?
Yeah, it was
Your very first impression. What was
a little different story than me. I had no idea what it was when I actually first got into it. I was that naive. I just knew that I'd worked with some clients, with a stroke client, and he said he had remarkable results from this. I thought this client loved working with me. And then he said, I just want to work with the other one. And that was my first, what? And so I was curious to explore more. In it. So the truth was, at that age, I was so disconnected from my physical body that I maybe started a couple years too young, where if I went through a training like that, I'd be like, wow, this is completely something different. But now I get it. I get it at a whole different level. And we need to connect into our physical bodies, To truly know who you are, you have to actually connect into your visceral physical body as well. But me, like so many other people, I wanted to dislodge from my body. I hated my belly. I hated, I was all in my head. I thought logic and reason were the way to go. And I thought and this is, programming from my father, it's all about success in your job, where what's laying on the floor and doing massage, what good is that? I came from that school. And so I had to reprogram my thoughts and really learn how to reconnect into my body as a safe zone.
All right. So you've brought up so many things already. I think the two things about the Feldenkrais method, and won't go into a lot of how I was attracted to it, but it does have a large conceptual framework, because Moshe Feldenkrais was a scientist and kind of a Renaissance man too.
Yeah.
So he was all about learning.
Yeah.
So I was attracted to that, but also I live too much in my head too. I think we are taught to do that. As children, you go to school. What do you got to do? You got to learn to sit still all day. Bored or not, you got to sit in that chair, and you got to think about things and absorb information.
Yeah.
And so here we are. We think that information is learning, and that's not all there is to it. So it's quite a revelation when you learn that part of living is not being in your head, it's being in your body.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that does, you talked about the body and the mind being one there, is that Feldenkrais is a way to improve yourself without just thinking about it. You actually, you're active, you're doing.
It's corticalized. You just stand up and you're already changed.
Right. So you've done something within yourself to have that experience.
Yes.
So it's a very active thing compared to just, say, psychoanalysis or thinking about yourself or whatever. Now, I think that you're exactly right. The mind and the body are one unity. So that we really have to involve both aspects of ourselves. So you already have talked about being a bad person.
Yes, very bad.
These negative thoughts.
Yes.
If anybody wants to be a human being and live, we have to realize that those are a universal condition of being a human being, especially in our culture. But we have to have culture. By the time you're an adult, negative thoughts are negative thoughts, and inner issues, inner demons, inner struggles, inner growth. It's all just a very universal thing. It's not just about you or me. At one time I did think that, oh, that's just me. I just feel that bad.
Right. And we all have some fragment of that as well. Yeah. In my book, I talk a lot about the good and bad, and we're all on a journey to be good. Some people more than others, and it shows up a little differently than for certain people. But when we make our decisions, a lot of it is based on being good, and that being good is a lot of our pre-programming. So we have to figure out, is this really being good? It goes all the way down to eating. Is this am I a bad person because I ate the chocolate cake, to the decisions we make in life?
Right. So you talk about a lot of things in your book, and you've already kind of gotten into a number of, but really the oh, there we are, unlocking the body's
This
wisdom.
is my author copy of, this
Yeah.
is the book, and then I have an accompanying workbook for
Okay.
all these exercises that break out of your mind.
And so we have to not forget the subtitle, Accessing Your Healing Power from Within. So
Yeah.
Let's just go to the word within for a minute.
Yeah.
Because we're so physically, we're living a physical life, but our culture promotes it being none other than that. Material things, things we want, just all about what we can see. Whereas when you talk about going within, there's something else. There's turning our attention inside, but there's also things that we can't see. For instance, integrity, love, honesty. Those are not just physical qualities, and you can't see them. That's something that transcends a purely physical, egotistical life. So,
Do you want me to talk?
What's that?
Do you want me to talk about the within part for me?
Talk about within.
Okay.
That's a very powerful word, a very big part of your book.
Yeah. So in my book, I outline 100, I just counted them, 140 different diagnoses and ailments. I did like neck stiffness, shoulder, upper, and I outlined 3 columns, the root cause, and then holistic solutions. Mostly that dealt with the mind and thought processes. Anyways, when I was working as an occupational therapist, there was, even though I had a very different way of helping people there was always this kind of like, it's happening to me from the outside. The doctor gave me this diagnosis, I have carpal tunnel, and now I need to just listen to him to what to do. What happens is when we rely too much on the medical establishment, like the pills or the doctor's advice, we lose the part of ourself, our deeper intuition about what actually caused it in the first place. And I'm not talking like on the medical reason why. I'm talking about the inner reason why, such as when we don't hearken to our voices calling or speak our truth in a situation. Over time, this will eventually result in a diagnosis in our vocal cords or throat, somewhere around here. Laryngitis doesn't just happen by accident. It happens usually because something is not said that needed to be said. That's an example, okay? So your healing powers from within is your ability to heal yourself from accessing this deeper, wiser information from within inside yourself. And in the 3rd column of the chart, I just kind of like a pointer, kind of like I directed you like where to look, where to turn, as far as where to go within to get this personalized healing that you could do. And I'm not saying don't go for medical help or anything. It's just more an adjunct.
Right. I like that. I like the way you've presented that, because a very shallow reading of the book, you could think that, oh, here's your diagnosis and here's the solution, that this will fix it. But that's not what you've done there.
Well, Louise Hayes has a book called You Can Heal Your Life. And this was also one of my inspirations, I'll confess, for this book. I was like, wow, how did she see that? That was like, 15 years ago when I first read it. But the thing is even though I love her book, she uses affirmations, and affirmations are a great way to reframe your mind, but it's not enough to heal yourself from diagnoses. It's not deep enough. Like if I have this ailment and then I think this positive thought, that's great, but what do I really need to heal this, whatever it is? So that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to provide a map for that so that people could have like a UTI, for instance, and just turn to like UTI. Oh, okay, this is what I'm pushing away.
So that becomes a very powerful tool. What you've done in those tables there is actually it becomes related to the body, because some of the things in that table are quite metaphorical.
Yes, absolutely.
We describe somebody as being really up today, or jumping for joy, or taken aback, or being down, or being, all these things are metaphorical because they're expressed in the body. And so that's a very interesting aspect of that. And you give an example with a swollen ankle or ankle problems of somebody stepping on the gas pedal but not being able to find the pedal.
Oh, yes. That's oh my God,
Yeah, So our foot and ankle are where we contact the ground, where we get in touch
Yes.
with our support. And
Yes.
and when that's not quite right, that would be that kind of a feeling. So
Yeah. It's like the
and,
feeling of being ungrounded or if like your whole world is collapsing right there.
right. And so what if you're tense? If you're real tense, what does that do to your breath? Uh,
And inhibits it.
yeah, so it's all reflected in the body. And very interestingly, when we use those expressions, uh, we could actually be talking about the solution to what we're talking about. So yeah, the metaphorical aspect is very interesting. Sometimes you just refer uh, people to the Feldenkrais methods and ATMs. In a few of those, you make that suggestion.
Mhm.
So it's just a powerful tool for looking further, I think.
Yeah, this is like, you know, a book to have in your cabinet, your bookshelf, you know, just for, we all get, you know, some of them are like day-to-day, like back pain, you know, diagnoses that you have all the time.
Very
Some of
helpful.
them more of diseases.
So now we're going to get up into some terms maybe that you brought up.
Great, challenge me, I love it.
Yeah, right in the book.
Uh-huh.
I'll give you a few of my thoughts here.
Okay.
Uh, so you use the word sin.
Uh,
Then later you use the word your higher self.
uh-huh.
And those are wonderful concepts. Uh, I do think that there are a lot of people. So let's go back to the first one.
Okay.
Accessing your healing power from within. Just two words, from within. So wouldn't you say that going within simply starts with those two words? Uh, you begin to direct yourself within, and that's where it all starts. You actually make an intentional direction to go inside a little bit, and then your journey just branches out all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and and your attempt to go inside allows you to go inside. So that's something that people in our culture, I've experienced this all my life. You work so many hours, you're told to work so many hours. By the time you get home, you don't even have time to do anything but eat and go to bed. And
Right.
certainly it kills your creativity if you
Right.
do too much of it. And
Right.
people don't have time to reflect.
Right.
You could have time to reflect, but a lot of your life really does get consumed either by your own work habits,
Yeah.
work habits,
Yes.
or which is your own neurosis a lot of times,
Yeah.
or by just the demands of life. It seems to. So going within, I think just intentionally setting your intention to go within is the beginning of the journey. What would you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, in terms of your higher self, I've talked to members of my family recently about a moral center, and when one of my sons said, "You know, Dad," he says, "people don't have a moral center unless they actually said." You look out at the world and they don't have that. Well, they do, but we don't have time to go within. And
I
so,
think people do. They just have to access it. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, I'd agree with that. So we talk about our higher self, and then you use the word sin. So I'm going to give you my impression, the thing that I've been
Okay.
uh,
Go ahead.
thinking about that for a long time, is that people, and then we can go back to you also use the term third eye, which I think is interesting. So we're just going to delve into these things.
Okay, do it.
I know you love to do it. So, okay, so here we go. Sin. So sin in most people's mind has to do with doing bad things, which I think is missing the point because the word means missing the mark. And in relation to your higher self, you mentioned that the reason you wrote the book is to direct people on onto their individual life purpose.
Uh-huh.
And so that's a path. That's a path going within, reflecting, using some of these tools, and being interested in your own individual life path, your own gifts. You said, "I want to be happy," and so Feldenkrais is a mighty powerful tool for being happy if you use it well.
Yeah, totally.
Uh, so it means missing the mark. So if you assign all of that to just doing bad things, I think you miss the mark. The mark is is living your best life, living your living according to your higher self, which is you could write a whole book about that anyway, because that's how much is in that concept. But okay, so that's the mark you're missing. If you get too tied up with I'm doing bad things, I'm doing the wrong thing, uh, you actually, in fact, are missing the mark, because it's not a matter of whether you did a bad thing. It's a matter of what path you're on. So you can be on a path to observe and integrate with your higher self, or you could just criticize yourself.
Well, my whole point of this topic, the sin chapter, was we have our own personal rule book about what is good and bad and what is sin and what's a not sin. And, you know, you could be freaking a Nazi and consider yourself the best person in the world, where everybody else, the Jews, are the sinners, you know? So it's depending on our environment and the world that we came in. So in our minds, a sin could be like maybe me even doing Feldenkrais and not following in the world of academics could have in some part of myself been like some sort of bad or sin, you know. Of course I've overcome that, and that's not true right now, but there were elements of that, you know, going on the artistic path as opposed to, you know, the medical path.
In fact, that was a criticism that Feldenkrais received from his own family.
Absolutely, you're right. Why are you laying on the floor doing these small movements of nothing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
As we get older, we have to break through, because anytime you have sin or the feeling of bad, that is a contraction state that will pull us in and cause all sort of physiological things, which then will result in disease and diagnoses, okay? Yeah. So we want to be whole, and we want to be pure, and we want to own our actions and behaviors. And also there's a role for forgiveness. We've all been bad people. We've all made mistakes. Sure. And we've all hurt another person in our lifetime. And we will continue to do that. So, you know, widening our level of awareness of how we're showing up and who we are. And if we know that we're showing up and meeting the world with our highest and best selves and our truth, then our intention will be pure. You know what I mean? Like the other day, I have a 2-year-old baby, and I stepped on her hand, and I felt like such a bad mom in that moment. But it's a matter of not criticizing myself, because my intention is pure to like love her, you know? So that's what I'm saying, that we want to not beat ourselves up for the little things that we do that hurts another person.
Exactly. So with that, maybe before we go much farther, why don't you comment on, you have a chapter on balance, heart, and the third eye. So a lot of people have maybe heard of the third eye. What does that mean to you? What is the third eye?
The third eye is literally, it's this area between your two eyebrows, slightly higher in the very center of our head. This is the seat of your intuition center. I actually have an intuition program. I have one that's online and a group program as well. So if you, this is one of the many tools, is how to access that part and to use that part. So it's slightly different, because I could see you use your frontal, I'll kind of put you on the spot seat if you don't mind. You're using your frontal cortex quite a bit. So this is the area that kind of contracts your eyebrows like towards one another, gives you little furrows and thinking. Thinking. There's nothing wrong. In the book, I call it the analyzer. There's nothing wrong with using that part, you know. It helps you write the questions for this interview and everything else. But for the most, like, when you want to really access your truth, like, what do you want to do for the rest of the day? You know, just like more balanced truth, then that comes from a different place. That's not, this thing here is going to misguide you. So in my book, I just kind of briefly in one little segment of a chapter talk about how to access this part of ourselves, to find our inner wisdoms and our inner truth. This is important for a lot of the exercises in the book, but also to get the information that we need. And when we don't get the information, it's somaticized even louder, okay? So whatever's going on, the physical plane is going to get any louder, usually until we either end up lying down in a hospital bed or we hear it and we make the shifts that are needed.
Right, okay, so you, I think you made a little bit of reference to the third eye as being...
your intuition center. That's what I call it.
Your intuition center. Yeah. So that would also be, in a sense, a way to observe yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Without using
softening of yourself. It's sort of like a contemplation. It's between contemplation and meditation with inside yourself. So you're observing yourself and you're looking at the world from a neutral perspective, a neutral lens.
Right. Okay. And that's a big part of a huge part of meditation, also a huge part of the Feldenkrais method.
Yeah. And a huge part of understanding other people and the ways of the world and
Oh,
having
yeah.
compassion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Feldenkrais based his method a lot on many things. One of them was neurodevelopmental movements,
Yeah.
the natural process of human growth and the movement of babies and so on.
Yeah.
But another one was judo.
Yes.
And so he would say that good posture was the ability, and he liked the term acture, of course, alignment for action rather than just standing around. But he would also say that the definition of good posture is the ability to move in any direction at any time without prior preparation, which means really, well, here's another thing that he would say is that goes along with that, because it's central to being able to do that, is that awareness happens in the space between thinking and acting. And if we act purely by our habits, there is no space. And if animals act purely by instinct, there is no space, but we have the ability to put that space there. So if you are in a position in which you can move in any direction at any time, and there are several directions, up, down, forward, backward, front, back, and even in time. And if you can do that, then you are standing in a neutral place. That place between you can bring a life practice into that place where there's a gap between thinking and acting. And
that gap and that space you're speaking of is literally just being. It's being in the moment.
Yeah, it's being in the moment. It's necessarily neutral.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
You know, the thing I've been thinking about to put you on the hot spot too is like when you're doing ATM, Feldenkrais, you have to be careful not to be, because you may be someone who goes very micro in your thinking, like very analyzing, very the small movements.
That's not me.
You can totally head trip and get so into that world, which kind of narrows your perspective and your lens. And so, you know, someone like you might really need to like open your perspective and open your lens and really like soften, because that is also using a little bit of the frontal cortex. But because the parasympathetic system kicks in so much with Feldenkrais, that is to your advantage, and that will help you to relax and soften. And so for you, the gold, the gem happens when you are like out of the analysis. You maybe had an wow, when I do this happens. You had an moment, and then you could just soften and release and let that whole body experience, which I see as like the flow, the chi, or the blood and the lymph flowing through your entire body. And I could see those moments happening so rich for you that the whole nervous system shifts.
I love it, Shara.
I just had this visual I wanted to share. Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely me. I'm a little bit tightly wound. I was out doing some of my aerobic base training the other day, carefully, low heart rate training, and but okay, so at every moment in our life, I don't expect us to be healthy, because we're not perfect. But we can practice that. So, but my book really was a good part of it. The last part of it is about the difference between being process-oriented and goal-oriented, and how much more you can accomplish if you are really process-oriented. But we're not that way usually in every moment. So I was out there doing my training, and this is nothing new. Years ago, I've known about this, but I just decided to actually make my goal to see how easily I could do, my running and hiking. And all of a sudden, a big smile grew across my face, because it was so nice, to do it that way. So, yeah, there's lots of secrets out there, and we hide them from ourselves. So, I think we've really gotten into some of the wonder of your book. I just want to really compliment you on the life you've lived, on the things that you've brought together for yourself, because they're all you.
Absolutely. Ooh, that felt really good to receive that. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Absolutely. And I had a lot of shame about this. You know, honestly, I was so hesitant to even post anything on the Feldenkrais Facebook group because I was like, oh, they're going to judge me for this part of me, you know? Maybe some people are, but it is important to, you know, put
no,
it all
I
together.
I think this interview has been really good because you put a book out there. It has a wonderful title, but people they don't know anything about the book, and you got a chance to talk about the book and about yourself, and it becomes very plain how you've integrated all these things, and I love it. So let's see. So another thing you talk about is pain as an opportunity,
Yeah.
and that is a wonderful thing to get into. And along with that, you get into how, I'm going to put it in my words, but everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So comment on how those two go together.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I talk a lot about the balancing system of our body, and when the balancing system has to do with our physical body, you know, like how our joints and our ligaments interact and our mind are speaking our truth. And I don't talk about chakras or anything woo like that in the book, but really how we're aligned through our body. When a system is off, something is off, then it's going to respond in some way, shape, or form. And most likely it's going to, as I spoke to earlier, it's going to show up on the somatic, the physical realm. And it's just going to get louder and louder and louder. Until eventually we'll have a hernia, or we'll have a liver cancer, or we'll have tendonitis, you know, rotator cuff, whatever. And like I was saying before, that there's a message, and this message that's underneath has some indication about where we're meant to be going, or trajectory. Okay. It's sort of like we've all been given certain hurdles or difficulties in this lifetime. Everybody has 5 or 6 limiting beliefs. Everybody has 5 or 6 circumstances in their life that are really can really put them in the victim role because they're really bad. And because of these situations, whether it's, you know, because of how your parents treated you, or you had no money, whatever the circumstance was, or you were always left out, this will travel with you as a pattern throughout your life. And it's here we are in adults. And now it's time for us to get to the other side and overcome these hurdles. And the question I put out there, I think I said something like this in the book, is who would you be if you overcame this? Okay. And then it's the overcoming that's actually the direction of your life purpose. So I end the book talking about life purpose. And I have an exercise.
Oh, that's nice.
Outlines it. Yes.
Yeah, I like the way you explained that.
So just briefly, you could either go in that direction of healing, resolution, and life purpose, or you could stay in the pain, and maybe you'll take cortisone shots and medications and surgery, whatever. Okay. Nothing's wrong with that. I'm all the proponent of whatever is going to help you to heal. But we also want to get the message that lies underneath it so that we could go here, this spot. Do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, so I like that because people want to get fixed, but there's nothing wrong with that. I like how you've put those two together, but you don't want to miss the inner part because that's where life is.
Do you sometimes like maybe you're in a relationship with somebody, you know your parents, and you're like, it's going to take an illness for this person to really change, you know, this personal characteristics. I honestly think that's one of the reasons why COVID hit, is because it's a reflection time on the part of ourselves that we may need to shape a little bit. That's my thought about it. Okay. But really, sometimes it takes an illness. Sometimes people don't change because of illness, but it's that time of that deeper time of reflection. And actually, colds are a good example because we all get sick sometimes. I get sick, I get colds, and it's always I talk about the body and the being out of connection. The physical body and the mind, you could think about it that way, being out of alignment. But it's also like, let me just push pause on life. I've been going too fast that I got myself sick. I'm like way in future time. Let me come back to present body and now. And sometimes just those small little illnesses, sicknesses that come up, it's time to kind of like, let's just put yourself back together give yourself the sleep you've been denying yourself and get the nutrients you need. And then you could go back into the world being a little bit brighter and more of who you were meant to be.
Right. No one wants to have nothing to do.
We all want to die used.
Well, all want to die what?
We all want to die used.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what a terrible life that would be if you got up and had nothing to do. Yeah. But it can get, too much doing is toxic.
Yeah, I just had this thought, like when we're on our deathbed, to lay there and think back that our last breath, we want that last breath to be like, it was all worth it and I would do it all again.
Yeah.
You don't want your last breath to be regret, oh shit, oh no, I'm still angry about, you don't want that.
No, you don't. You want to be ready for the next part of the journey, whatever that is.
Exactly.
That time. So, pain as an opportunity is just very countercultural.
It's more of a perspective shift, because I'm a proponent for, instead of people going into the victim role, because we all know people who all of a sudden their identity becomes that diagnosis, right? I mean, we all know those people in our lives, whether it's a mother or a father. And so it's understandable. I'm not saying, you're in stage 4 cancer, that is your life right now. However, when you just shift the flashlight of the lens just a little bit towards, there's something deeper, instead of like what's wrong, what is here to learn and what's right. That is a huge step in healing.
Right. I really like that you've clarified that with cancer. I read a number of years ago, I read Bruce Lipton's The Biology of Belief. I think very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting, but nothing guarantees that we're going to be psychologically or spiritually healthy at every single moment of our life.
No, but the best we could do is keep a healthy mind. Healthy mind, right. More insurance policy to healthy body.
Right. So living in this present moment is a very practical, pragmatic thing. I mean, it's the gateway to everything, to potential.
And acceptance of this moment just as it is.
Yeah.
Anytime you're in resistance, that's going to create more physiological constraint. Like say you do have something, say you have MS or Lyme's disease, the more you fight it and resist it and feel victimy, that's actually going to slow down your progression.
Yeah. I have to say that with all this discussion that we've been having the last few minutes, that I was kind of surprised. I retired in August. I'll be 71 in April. And I was going to work a little bit longer, but I had to take a few days off because I got sick and with the COVID, and that's what it was. I just decided not to go back. But so you think now, boy, I got all the time in the world to do what I want, right?
Yeah.
And I just found out recently, just this last week, I am doing so much that I'm starting to shake. I'm actually starting to feel shaking in my body. And I sleep well.
Well, I'm going to give you a tip around that.
What's that?
I'm going to give you a tip around that, but this is a personal tip for you. Okay.
I think I already feel what I need to do, but go ahead. I'd love to have your tip.
Well, my tip for you, my intuition is that it's your mind that's working on overdrive. So you're fully capable of doing all the things that you have on your calendar. And when you sleep, I could see you sleep, dead level sleeping, but when you're.
See that?
Yeah, I see that. So if you just slow down the mind and we're just like fully here, and then like, it's like filing cabinets, yeah. Then you wouldn't have this physical ailments. It was your mind that caused the physical stuff inside your body.
Oh yeah, I can feel that, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So let me share what I did last night.
Okay.
Is that I have this interview coming up, and they're important. And I said to myself, I'm not going to do any more work tonight. I'm going to prepare for it tomorrow. And it's been a wonderful discussion. I've enjoyed it very much. So I think that worked out.
I mean, that works really well for you if you could actually just shut the mind off, which I believe you could.
Oh, I can.
Yeah. So then that's a great solution for you.
Yeah. All right. Shara, I have loved this. I'm so glad you got to talk about your book and bring out who you are into that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Keep telling people. Yeah. And okay, there's the book. So is there anything else that you would really like people to know or get from this conversation today before we go on to where they can contact you?
Um, no, it's all in the book, you know. And
Well,
here's the last thing I'll leave you with is that you have a really good reason for feeling the limiting beliefs and the pain and whatever hardships you're going through. You know, maybe in this conversation, I made it sound so easy to heal, and
oh yeah,
believe that. You know, I had such my journey on my own, and what I really realized, and maybe the reason I stepped more into this work, is I wish I had someone like me to hold me during my 20s and all this teens and
yeah,
all the suffering and pain I went through. And it feels so isolating to be, for me. I mean, I think so many of us feel so isolated right now. And if there's anything I could do to hold you deeper and to hold you more in either in a container so you feel the support that you need and deserve, or like a collective kind of like holding, that I want to be here for you for that. And I want you to know that you have a really, really good reason for feeling the fears and the worries and the anxiety or whatever you're feeling right now to this day. It makes perfect sense.
thank you. And I want to tell people, I think you have a website, Shara
Yeah.
Ogin.
Yes, it's my name, sharaogin.com, sharaogin.com. I have actually a whole bunch of things coming up because I'm hosting retreats where there's going to be Feldenkrais in the retreats, leadership. Anyways, it's all, I'll be updating my website as well. I have some group coaching programs. I have some intuition training programs, and then I work with people one-on-one. So, and my book is on sale at Amazon, and next week it'll be at Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, exactly. So they can contact you at your website or look for the book. And one more time, the book is Unlocking the Body's Wisdom, Accessing Your Healing Power from Within.
And if you're unsure if you want to buy the book, I actually have a free excerpt on my website, so you could download 30. Excellent. I'm giving away 30 pages of it for free.
Okay, Shara, thank you very much. Yeah. All right.
Okay.